Majority of Gen Z have an unfavorable impression of Israel. And my friends, I think the reason for that is that we're losing the digital war. And we have to figure out a way to win the digital battle.
So now there are a couple of whistleblowers that are coming forward inside TPUSA to tell you, yes, there were some real shady people surrounding Charlie, and they have a lot of financial crimes to cover up.
My name is Joshua Peterson. I worked for Turning Point USA and Turning Point USA Fate, and I knew Charlie Kirk personally. I want to say on the record that there was a inner circle at Turning Point USA that was constantly working against Charlie and his interests and what he wanted to do, as well as there was a Jewish influence in Turning Point that he was not very fond of, that he wanted to get rid of. He tried doing this, he tried creating a Doge department, and he gets assassinated. Another thing that makes me believe this inner circle was constantly working against Charlie was because of the fact that he had a whole entire branch of Turning Point that he had no idea about, and that was the stock market branch. Now, the thing about this branch is it's been getting millions of dollars poured into it over the past 4 years now, and that's been seen through their latest tax returns, which were also filed late, which was weird, but that's not a topic for another time. This stock market group that Turning Point has been throwing millions of dollars into the stock market for the past 4 years now, and Charlie Kirk had no knowledge of that whatsoever. Huh. Now, if you also look into it a little bit deeper, if you look at the staff on that branch specifically, it says zero. It says there's nobody employed in that branch, yet they're pouring $5 million into funds for employees. Make it make sense. That sounds like money laundering to me. It sounds like there's some pyramid scheme going on behind the scenes at Turning Point that Charlie did not know about originally. And I think that he was planning to expose that, and that's ultimately what got him killed.
A lot of people are asking, did you really work for Turning Point USA? And yes, I did. I'll tag some photos in the next clip just to show you guys that I did work for them.
Okay, there you go. There's one. Here's another one.
I'm just going to say what I have to say, and if it lands in the right hands, whatever. My name is Amanda. I've tried to record this like 7 times, and it's just not working, so I'm just going to say what I have to say, and if it lands in the right hands, whatever. My name is Amanda. I worked for Turning Point USA and Charlie Kirk for 4 years. One of those years, I was a donor relations officer in Phoenix, Arizona, and that means is I worked with all the donors within a certain region for all of Turning Point's assets. So Turning Point Action, Turning Point Academy, Turning Point USA, Faith, Blexit, podcasting, everything. When I saw Candace Owens' comment this morning, granted, I am not a Candace Owens fan, personally, and that comment, I felt like I had to say something. What I did for Turning Point USA within that department was some of the most, I can't even begin to describe it, because the people that I felt like I was working for were not, they were horrible. I mean, like, it was just some of the worst times ever. And I was working for such an amazing, brilliant idea of an organization, and to see it for what it really was behind the scenes and what makes it Turning Point, which is money. I mean, I'm sorry, but it is. That's how it works in the nonprofit world. It took me so much towards the end not to tell donors to take their money elsewhere.
Okay. And did I cut her off at the end?
Sounded, but
did you have more to say?
Just
so here's Candace Owens. I received information last night that put the final pieces together for me. I can now say with full confidence that I believe Charlie Kirk was betrayed by the leadership of Turning Point USA and some of the very people who eulogized him on stage. Yes, I will be naming names and providing evidence for my claims, and I'm making a personal plea to every well-meaning person who donated to this godforsaken organization to request a refund. You were lied to, and leadership knew. So that's, I think, the tweet she was responding to. And there you go. There was a lot of rotten people around Charlie, and whistleblowers are coming forward, and TP USA, the people who are there now, cannot stop gaslighting. Non-stop gaslighting. They just got caught ducking having Candace Owens on their show after they famously invited her on their show. And now they won't invite her on. Now she's not a guest. We're not inviting a guest. So it's amazing. But there it is. Okay, if you'd like to hear more jokes about this, come see me January 11th. That's right, January 11th in Waikiki, and then January 30th at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. Over to Steph.
Thank you, Jimmy. All right, Savage, the Judean people were a sect from Iran originally. Can't assassinate on a live stream. They want her in person. Very sus. Buster Blue. No, you got to be in person for us to have this conversation. Really? Ha.
Okay.
Back to Jim.
So here is the stuff I think that the people at TPUSA are really worried about. They're worried about that they were doing lots of shady financial stuff. And there's an even bigger thing that Candace talked about. We'll get to on Monday. But this is so damning. Watch this. This guy, Wolves and Finances, did a deep dive into their public financial statements because they're a nonprofit, supposed to be a charity. And here we go. Let's watch.
In the 990 forms, you can go to page 8, and each organization must list out their highest paid independent contractors. What is curious is that on the FY24 form for America's Turning Point, Tyler Boyer lists himself as an independent contractor.
Isn't that interesting? So the guy who was the COO and is involved in a lot of shady stuff, he was an independent. He was getting money directly from TPUSA as if he was a company, and that he was running a company. So he's getting. Let's see how much money was it 500,000, 700? Was it $1 million? Was it more than $1 billion? Let's watch.
And he puts his personal home address. Now, I'm not doxing anyone here because it is public information on the IRS form. And I have to tell people, please do not go to Tyler Boyer's house. That is not appropriate. But I will say, if you go look up his residence on Google Maps, you will see that he lives in a massive mansion. Now, I'm not going to show his home out of respect, but you can go see it for yourself. It is mind-blowing. Where is Tyler Boyer getting all this money?
Where?
But what is even more important is if you go to the other shell company, Turning Point Action, in FY 2024, their number one independent contractor is a company called 110 LLC.
Well, just so you know, they have plenty of shell companies under the umbrella of TPUSA. And this is just one of them. And their number one contractor is 110 LLC.
In fact, this has been one of their largest contractors for the last 3 years. These are all the payments, and they total $1,456,261 over the last 3 years. That's almost $1.5 million. The description they provide is social, digital media, ad placement. Now, there is also an address for this company. So I thought, let's take a trip and go check this company out. If Turning Point is paying them $1.5 million, they must be doing something really great.
I am on location in Queen Creek, Arizona. And if you don't know, Queen Creek is a suburb of Phoenix. So I'm at the address that was listed on the 990 form. And this is strange. This is a strip mall. So I'm going to get out. I'm going to take a walk around and see if I can find the business 110 LLC. Okay. I've walked past all the suites. I've checked all the doors. The business 110 LLC, as far as I can tell, is not here. What is going on? So Turning Point is putting on their IRS form that they are sending $1.5 million to this parking lot. Well, I'm sitting here in the parking lot. The business is not here, as far as I can tell. What is going on? I mean, maybe they didn't think that anyone was going to actually drive out here and check it out. But as far as I can tell, the business is not here. So my question is, do the Turning Point donors know this is how their money is being spent? That Turning Point is writing on their IRS forms that they're sending $1.5 million to this parking lot.
I did some additional checking. Another thing that is strange is that there is no website for 110 LLC. How do you run a business without a website? That's pretty strange. And I thought, maybe they moved. Maybe there's a different location. But if you look it up on Google Maps, there is no location for 110 LLC. So there's no website, there's no location. Does this company actually exist? Well, we do have records that it is owned by someone named Jake Hoffman, who is actually the former communications director for Turning Point USA. He is now a Republican state senator in Arizona. Now, just to give you some context, Jake Hoffman is a really powerful person in Arizona, which may be why no one has talked about this before. In his financial disclosure statement, he lists that he is the owner of 110 LLC at the same address in Queen Creek. What is also curious is that on the financial disclosure form, he lists out 8 different businesses that are all operating out of that same strip mall.
Ooh.
But what is even more strange is that on the financial disclosure form, he actually lists out the suite numbers. He claims that he is operating his business out of suites 105 to 503. Excuse me? That is every suite in the strip mall. How does that make sense? Is he operating out of the grocery store? Is he operating out of Panda Express? Is he operating his business out of the pet dental clinic? Now, if you watch my channel, you can tell that I'm a conservative. But I do not have a problem calling out a Republican if I see something that looks shady. And this is all allegedly. I don't know if anything illegal is happening for sure. Maybe there is an innocent explanation for all of this.
Maybe.
I have never met Jake Hoffman, so I cannot speak to whether he's an ethical person or not. All I can speak to is what these people are writing in their financial forms. You have to admit that it looks pretty strange. It looks like Turning Point is sending $1.5 million to a parking lot to get picked up by a politician.
If you remember, Baker Tilly is the accounting firm that did the annual financial audit. So they're the ones that signed off on Turning Point. They gave it a clean audit. They said there's no problems at Turning Point. Well, Baker Tilly, did you look at the largest contract? They're supposed to do an audit procedure to make sure that it's an actual company. Well, I'm sitting here in the parking lot. I'm looking around and I don't see a company called 110 LLC. So Baker Tilly, I want to know the specific audit procedure that you did to ensure that this was a legitimate company and not an illegal payment to a politician.
In a few weeks, Turning Point is hosting their biggest event of the year, America Fest. All of your favorite content creators will be showing up in Phoenix, Arizona to give speeches. I wonder if any of these people have a problem with Turning Point sending $1.5 million to a parking lot. Are any of them going to address in their speech any of the financial concerns at Turning Point? Patrick Bet-David has one of the largest business podcasts in the world, and he's been a major contributor to America Fest. He is the business guy. Can he explain this to us? I would like to hear Patrick Bet-David give us some kind of business scenario which explains why Turning Point would send $1.5 million to a parking lot. Now, I've noticed a lot of comments suggesting that it is inappropriate for me to criticize the finances of Turning Point USA. Let me explain this for people who may not understand. Turning Point receives a tax subsidy. That is what a 501c3 is. You are paying more in taxes so that Turning Point is tax exempt. And in general, this is a good thing because we want nonprofits out in the world doing good things. So we give them this tax benefit. But if Turning Point is not doing good in the world, if they have problems in their financials, if their tax forms are missing, maybe they should not get tax exempt status. The rich and powerful people who run Turning Point are raising hundreds of millions of dollars and they don't have to pay tax on any of it because you watching this video are footing the bill. So every American has the right to ask questions about Turning Point's financials. If you think they look shady, you are absolutely justified in demanding answers. The other thing I mentioned in my last video was the missing $8.6 million that was transferred from Turning Point USA to America's Turning Point.
So this is another big scandal. $8.5 million went from Turning Point USA into one of their shell companies. Let's watch.
Now we have the finances so we can see how that money was spent. Just to recap, there are 4 shell companies. Turning Point USA is the main one. Then we have Turning Point Action, America's Turning Point, and Turning Point Endowment. Just as a reminder, Tyler Boyer is the only paid executive listed for America's Turning Point. Charlie Kirk is not even listed.
So America's Turning Point, Charlie Boyer, or Tyler Boyer. Okay, here we go.
So it seems strange to me that in FY24, $8.6 million mysteriously got transferred out of the main company into the shell company managed by Tyler Boyer.
Isn't that interesting? $8.6 million. Wonder if Charlie knew about that.
Look at how this money was actually spent. It went mainly to salaries.
What the
And in
salaries?
the last video, I mentioned the possibility of ghost employees. This is when an organization pays people, records it as salary expense when those people do not actually work for the business.
So almost all that money, that $8.6 million, that $8.5 million that came from Charlie Kirk's organization, funneled into the one that Boyer is in charge of. They said that most of that money, almost all of that money, was spent on salaries. That's it? Really? No other expenses? And how many employees did you? Well, this guy's going to break it down for you.
So I want to drill down into this idea further. Now, I have to admit that salary information can be notoriously hard to analyze because people are constantly coming and going from an organization. For instance, you could get a bunch of people hired in the last month of the year. Those kind of timing issues can cause strange fluctuations in your expenses, but you would expect the overall trends to make sense. You would expect the numbers to be within a certain range that is realistic. For America's Turning Point in FY24, we see that for the first time, they report 24 employees. This number is reported on a calendar year, and the expenses are reported on a fiscal year ending on 6/30. So let's stagger these out. If their 990 forms are correct, and they had 0 employees in calendar year 2022, that means that the entire salary expense for FY23 was related to the first 6 months of calendar year 2023. They spent $3.7 million in 6 months on salaries. In my opinion, these numbers are a bunch of baloney. The math does not work. Let's use the most favorable assumptions for America's Turning Point and assume that this expense was spread out across the largest number of employees. If we assume that 24 employees were hired on January 1st and worked for 6 months, that means that the average annual salary of those 24 employees was around $300,000. That's a lot of money. That is every employee at America's Turning Point. It could be the secretary. I would like to know what that secretary is doing that they get a salary of $300,000. I would like to ask the other employees at the other shell companies at Turning Point, are you all making $300,000 a year? Because according to the financials, somebody is. Now, we don't know this for sure. These are just assumptions, but I am telling you that this is catching my eye as a red flag because these are astounding numbers for a nonprofit. $8.6 million mysteriously gets transferred into the shell company managed by Tyler Boyer, and it is spent on this massively inflated salary expense. Again, maybe there's some kind of innocent explanation for this, but at some point, we're going to need a lot of explanations. One of the board members for Turning Point is a guy named Tom Sadeka.
So he goes, there's more, but that's basically it. There you have it. So these are just, by the way, these are just the tip of the iceberg. And that guy's Wolves in Finance. I showed it at the top. Wolves in Finance. He's got a YouTube show and he's got an X account. And so that, believe me, that's just the tip of the iceberg on the financial fraud that was happening around Turning Point USA. So there's lots of that stuff happening. Charlie orders a Doge-style audit of what's happening. And well, this guy actually gets into it.
Ironically, Tom Sadeka was the president and CEO of a payroll company.
How is that ironic?
This is from a press release on the NASDAQ website. From 2003 to 2020, he ran Precision Payroll of America, where he turned that company into a leader in the complex, highly regulated world of human resources and payroll processing. So let's ask the payroll guy. Tom Sadeka, do you see anything strange with these payroll numbers? Now, to understand the full picture, it's not just about where the money was going to, it's also where the money was coming from.
That's right.
When I was going through all the new financial information, I saw this chart, and immediately, I had a good idea of what was going on. This shows revenue going into Turning Point Action. And you can see a gigantic leap in revenues for FY24. It went from 10.7 million to 27.2 million.
Whoa.
That is over 150% increase in 1 year.
So that's another one of their shell companies. Big increase, 10.7 million to 27.2 million in 1 year, 150%
An
increase.
extraordinary achievement for a nonprofit. What is even more curious is when you put this chart side by side with Turning Point USA. Turning Point USA shows a 4% increase. Remember that Turning Point USA is the main organization with Charlie Kirk as president. Charlie Kirk worked a lot less on Turning Point Action, and Tyler Boyer is the COO.
Oh.
Do you see what is happening? For some reason, in FY24, Turning Point got a ton of new donors, but these new donors went around Charlie Kirk and into the organization where Tyler Boyer was a COO.
So now are you starting to get the picture? Are you starting to get the picture? I hope so.
It's almost like they did not want Charlie Kirk to know about it. Now, we don't know who these mysterious new donors are, but it looks like someone was trying to take over MAGA and they were doing it behind Charlie Kirk's back. The timing of all of this is very important. FY24.
So that is his big theory, is that they had lost because Trump was obviously going to be the guy. Nikki Haley had to drop off. So all the establishment people that they could control were gone. And well, let's watch.
Or represents the 12 months ending June 30th, 2024. Remember what was happening at this time. This period lines up almost exactly with the Republican primary for the 2024 presidential election. January 15th, 2024, Trump wins the Iowa caucuses with 51% of the vote. March 5th, 2024, on Super Tuesday, Trump wins 14 of 15 Republican contests. And on the following day, Nikki Haley drops out of the race. May 30th, 2024, Donald Trump was convicted of 34 felony counts in New York, and it did nothing to reduce his popularity. So in FY24, it was becoming obvious that Donald Trump was the frontrunner in the presidential race. When Nikki Haley dropped out, you had all these rich and powerful donors who no longer had any influence over the Republican Party. These donors had to come up with some new way to infiltrate MAGA. I think they went to Tyler Boyer. You also have to remember how busy Charlie Kirk was at this time. He was racing all over the country trying to get Donald Trump elected. So if someone at Turning Point was working behind his back to steal money from the company, this would have been a really easy time to do that. But the problem with stealing is you can only get away with it for so long. Along comes the FY24 financial audit. We know from the audit letter that it was concluded on June 20th, 2025, a few months before Charlie Kirk was murdered. If someone was trying to hide financial information from Charlie Kirk, they probably could have gotten away with it until June 2025, because what happens at the end of an audit is you review all the financial information. So imagine this. A few months before Charlie Kirk's murder, he's sitting at his desk. He's looking at all the FY24 financials side by side, and he starts to notice some things that are funny. I think Charlie Kirk started asking questions, and I also believe this is what prompted the memo that he wrote 8 days before he was murdered. In the memo, he appointed a new COO for Turning Point USA and requested a Doge-style audit. Now, for legal reasons, I have to say that I do not have any evidence of a crime. We would need an investigation of the books at Turning Point to know for sure. What I am saying is that there are red flags in the financials at Turning Point and a lot of questions that need to be answered. The Attorney General of Arizona is Chris Mays. She has jurisdiction over the situation. Chris Mays is most well known for trying to arrest the Trump electors in Arizona. That case fizzled out and did not go anywhere. But I have to wonder, is Chris Mays going to look into this? I am limited in what I can research because I don't have access to Turning Point's financials, but the Attorney General has the authority to go in, look at their books, and start throwing people in jail. She is responsible for looking after the people of Arizona. Does it bother her that we have a state senator that is allegedly lying on his financial disclosure statement? Is she concerned that Turning Point is writing on their IRS form that they are sending $1.5 million to a parking lot? If she does not look into this, I would be concerned that she's in on the scam. If you watch my channel, you know that I'm a huge fan of Charlie Kirk.
So there, now you have the rest of the stuff. So that's going on like crazy. Shifted money around, shell corporations that this Tyler guy is running, and looks like he's trying to hide it from Charlie. But there's even bigger. There's an even bigger donor situation that Candace revealed that I didn't have time to prep for today's show. I was busy prepping. So if I'm late for the show, it's because I'm prepping for the show and I'm getting new stuff. And so that's why I was late today for the show. So I apologize. I know it upset some people. So I apologize. But anyway, but I will get to it Monday. So they're just scratching. So there's so much shade. Everything these guys do, this Blake Neff, this all the preachers surrounding the Rob McCoys, all the they're all contradicting each other about everything, including the drone. They said that they weren't allowed to have a drone, and then of course they said, "Oh yeah, we had drones, and we were looking at them in real time." So anyway, so now you know what they're really. So this is we're getting down to the. So why would the TPUSA people not be interested in finding out who the real killer is? Why are they not? Why are they accepting the FBI BS narrative, hook, line, and sinker? They have no questions. That's what I said about Megyn Kelly. You don't have any questions? You don't have any questions about why they paved over a crime site? An active crime site? You don't have any questions about how a 30-06 bullet didn't go right through? You don't have any questions about the narrative about him taking the gun apart, putting it again? It doesn't fit in the backpack, but somehow he had it in his backpack, and then he jumped, and he gets changed his clothes a million times, but he puts it in the yard of the Palantir house? You don't have any questions? None of that? Then he texts exactly how he did it. If you wanted to incriminate yourself 100%, he did the exact thing you would do, and he does that. What doesn't make any sense? None of it makes sense. Let alone the Egyptian planes and the French connection to all this, let alone all that stuff. None of it. And so the fact that none of them, and none of them care that they were lying about, they contradicted themselves about the drone coverage, that they said they couldn't have drones. And then of course they said they did have drones. What? The head of the security team said they weren't allowed drones. Then of course they are saying, hey, we got the drones. So the fact that TPUSA is not suspicious of the FBI story is suspicious, 100%. And the fact that they keep getting caught gaslighting and flat out lying about taking the SD cards, lying about saying Charlie was besties with Netanyahu, lying about saying that that he was besties with Ben Shapiro, and of course she reveals all this. She has the receipts, she has the text messages. She revealed it all. She proved them to be liars. So anybody still going along with TPUSA's story or the FBI story is a dupe almost beyond belief, or getting paid, which I can believe that. But I can't believe someone honestly looks at this case and the FBI narrative and all the lies TPUSA is called and go, nope, I think TPUSA is telling the truth and Candace Owens is the nut. I think Kash Patel and the FBI, the same people who are gaslighting us about and lying about covering up the Epstein files, the same people who closed the investigation into the Butler, Pennsylvania shooting, yeah, okay, all right. I trust them. But Candace Owens, whoa, she's asking logical questions. That makes her crazy. The same stuff they did to me with Seth Rich. You ask obvious, logical questions that any reporter would ask, and then they slander you as hard as they can to shut you up and scare you. And it's not working with Candace because she has a huge platform, and most people don't trust Kash Patel. Well, of course they don't. They've already been shown to be liars of the highest order when they're covering up the Epstein files and lying that Epstein didn't traffic those kids to anybody except himself. So those are the people that TPUSA have no questions for. Isn't that interesting? All right, so that's enough on this over to stuff. Oh, by the way, if you want to hear my jokes on this, come see me in Pottstown, Pennsylvania, December 6th. I'll see you January 11th in Hawaii, Waikiki. I'll see you January 30th at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles. Over to stuff.
Jimmy, what would you say to people who say, Jimmy, you're just covering the soap opera between Candace Owens and TPUSA?
Oh, yeah. Well, what I would say to those people is, no, this is very revealing.
You should, Jimmy.
That the people at TPUSA are gaslighting you constantly, and they're being caught in lies. So that's not the drama or whatever. There's drama involved. But that's not covered. This is substantive. They just got caught offering to bring her on the show and then using weird semantical wordplay to say, we never booked her. She's not a guest. We offered her. It's that you guys are. So that's substance. That's substantive. And it shows them to be gaslighting liars who are ducking. They're going to do a whole show concerning Candace Owens, but they don't want her on with them. So that's not only drama. That's substantive. So thanks for that question.
And then one more. Jimmy, Candace is making money off of this.
I guess she was supposed to shut her show down and not make and do it for charity. What? No, nobody else is asked to do that. No news show is. People who do news show make money doing the news. She's doing the news. Did anybody ask the Turning Point USA to return the $70 million they raised after Charlie Kirk's death? They were selling T-shirts at his funeral. Did anybody ask them to return that? No. That's such a bogus. She's making money off it. Yeah, she does a news show. I'm making money too. That's what we do. If I do jokes about it on stage, I'm also making money. Yeah, that's just such a lame, weak sauce criticism. That is so. Oh, someone who's doing the job that they always do for money is also making money now. That is such a. They tried to say that when I was debunking the COVID narrative. Jimmy Dore sells T-shirts. You mean like everybody? Jimmy Dore sells T-shirts as he's debunking COVID. So that's what all he's doing it for is for money. So whenever someone doesn't like what you're saying, they try to say you're only saying it for money. I get it. That's par for the course. That's the easiest, laziest, most bullshitty criticism you could have of someone who's telling the truth. They said the same thing about me when I was asking normal questions about Seth Rich. I'm doing it for clicks. They said the same thing about when I was debunking Russiagate. They said the same thing about COVID. I was right about everything I said about COVID. They said I was doing it for clicks. I'm sorry that this is what I do for a living now, but that's what Candace does for a living. It's what she's always done for a living. And she's not selling Charlie Kirk T-shirts. That would be trying to make money. She's not doing that. She's just doing her show. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Jimmy. All right. So Elodie, the Bee, says Erica Kirk will attend a town hall on December 13th, moderated by Barry Weiss. Isn't that interesting? The moderator and the date just saying, thank you so much for that one. And that's from Elodie. Or is that Elodie? Hope she does it remotely or live streams the live stream, Alex. Total Pussies USA. More like it. Are you with me, Psycho Kitty? Funny. Hi, Jimmy. Love you, kids. Oh, Joel Libretti, I will ask Misha for you during our next break. Erica Kirk still had Trump's man juice. Unvaccinated guy. Woo! Thank you for that one. You'd think if God was gonna miracle, he would have just stopped the bullet from killing him. You have to be industrial grade stupid to believe that, Mike. Or is that Mikey? Something Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk had in common is their position to infant circumcision. A religious blood ritual disguised as a surgical vaccine. Do I sound anti-Semitic for pointing this out? Future intact. Where are you? Hold on. Thank you. Grok confirmed to me that AI is designed to confidently give you an answer even when it doesn't know what the correct answer to your question is. Sandra, we found that out repeatedly. Have you ever had a conversation giving Grok some facts? Grok will change its mind. Thank you for... All right, let's go here. TPUSA demanding Candace be at a particular place at a particular time makes it seem like they're planning something other than an interview. That's G-Man. Unvaccinated guy. Humans can be parallelistic. They can infiltrate, imitate, take control, and play off the world's sympathy, just as Netanyahu Group. Okay, just is Netanyahu Group. You think God was... Oh, I read that one. Jimmy, can you have Baron Coleman on? We've watched some of Baron's stuff. Thanks for the recommendation. Nice. That's from the judges. I believe Trump pardoned Tyler Bauer about 3 weeks ago. I wonder if it was a blanket pardon. I wonder too.
Oh, come on. Look that up.
I'll look it up. All right, let's go here. Satan loves Zionists. That's from Fuzzy Balls. Hey, Fuzzy. Turning Point is using the money to buy fake accounts, aka bots and booze, views, and fake out the public into thinking it's the newest cool thing. Thank you for that one. TPOSA scheduled a meeting with Candace on her husband's birthday. Most likely they knew she wouldn't be able to attend in person. Oh, thank you for that.
It's her husband's birthday.
You mentioned that.
And it's at the exact same time she does her show.
Yes. And that was Flying Ninjas TV. Thank you, Flying Ninjas TV. Let's see what I have here. Sounds like classic Wall Street move. Loot and scoot. Thank you. Do this one. Albert Max. Jimmy was awesome in Brisbane, and so was his wife. I hear she's funny too. That's the word on the street. Albert Max. That's sweet for you saying that on the chat. Thank you, moderators. They're doing such a good job moderating, modding. I call them mods. All right, let's see here. Oh, shoot. I believe Trump. I got to look up the Tyler Bauer. Let's see what this one is. Max Power. I lean towards Candace being closer to the truth and the official narrative, but there's no excuse for her not going in person to the TPUSA. She doesn't need to go in person. That's just not how it rolls right now. So she spent 3 months calling them out. They can, no problem. They can, Max Power, a couple people share your sentiments, and, you totally, I see what you're saying. We love Glenn Greenwald, and to expect Glenn to be here in person when he lives in Brazil is kind of crazy. Also, it's expeditious to do these via Zoom or StreamYard. It gets to it. And she said on her podcast, what was it on? Was it Monday? I'll do it tomorrow. She was ready to just have this conversation open. So I don't need somebody to be physically there to have this conversation. And that's just kind of like muddying the waters. Max Power. Hold on. Gong. Thank you. See the force I struck that with? Everything's a scam. Everything's a lie. It's as cold as Witchy's titty. Bitch, get on that broom and fly. Oh, you've changed it up, Vientikis. I see what you did there. You have changed it up. All right, let's go over here. Are you going to go to one of our shows, ladies and gentlemen? Look at this flyer. Do you know who does our flyers? A lot of them. A lot of these flyers. Nisha, what can't she do? Well, I was just thinking, all right, I'm not going to say anything right now. Show us your feet. Okay, let's see here. How many stories have we done so far? That's what I thought. Okay, good. I'm right on track. All right, let's see what we have here. Black Friday. Let's see. Is Jimmy back from Australia? Yes, Liquid Sunshine. Jimmy is back from Australia. We had a great time. That was tons of fun. Karen Burns, you're the best. What are you up to, Karen? Always good to see you. It's always fun. It's kind of interesting. Like, I might not remember names. So if you see us somewhere, you can just say, hey, it's Milton, remember? And usually if we've met you before, I totally remember you. It's so wild. I might not remember your name. I remember your essence. That's what I remember. But it's like, I taught high school English for over 20 years, and I made it a point to know kids' names. But after that school year, it was hard to keep their names in my head. And on occasions, I've run into some of my students. Like last year, I ran into Paula that I taught her when she was in junior high. Oh my God, what a great kid. And I met her and her husband. I think it was a year ago, Thanksgiving weekend, when we were performing at Flappers. And her husband was a fan of the show, and she introduced herself to me, and I immediately knew who she was. She's a young woman now, but I could just see her as a kid, and she had a baby recently, and so it's kind of fun running into my students, but always great seeing our fans again. And Karen, I would say, have we seen each other at least 4 times? And I remember one time I think you brought your kids with you, so I remember that. So let's see here. Jimmy is your new spirit animal. He is an animal. All right, let's see here. Frank Rizzo, nice, a good teacher. I thought I was good. Sometimes they didn't think so. They used to have a thing called Rate a Teacher. And one of my friends thought it was a porn site. No, not the one I know of. So rate a teacher. Kids could go in and rate you. And I remember one time I went and looked, and the kid said, Ms. Amorano makes me feel dumb. Spelled D-U-M. What are you going to do on that one? You know, they also said Ms. Amorano is a failed actress. Oh, ooh, that was like, I don't know. What do you do when somebody's just like cuts you so deep? I don't care. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do a premium streamium today for our premium streamium members. I know. We're trying to do it every Friday when we're in town, and we're going to be giving some merch away today. Do you like this t-shirt, huh? Huh? Come on. All right, there we go. Hey, Trump 1420. Message received. Looking good right back at you. All right, let's see here. Okay, let me go back over to Rumble. I don't want to miss my Rumble girls. Let's see here, this one. All right, Max Power, much appreciated for that one. Jesus is the best scam ever. Tickets to heaven, send money. Marv Sons, thank you. Much appreciated. Steph missed the mark with those kids. What does that mean, miss the mark? By Repo, wah, thank you so much. My chats get deleted when I use the word, oh yeah, so you have to say grape. All right. Oh, what was the shirt I was wearing the other day? I don't remember.
Okay.
All right, back to Mr. Jim.